The big news here isn't just what they've done with interest rates, so we'll come back to that in a second. This is their big opportunity to give their forecast for the state of the UK economy. And it's the first time they've done that since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And this is a really striking, very gloomy forecast. They are forecasting that the UK will face an effective recession towards the end of this year, seeing the impact of those energy prices feeding into families' bills and pushing down their ability to spend, and that will cause a recession. The other warning for the bank is that on top of that, already in the face of that, we are going to see double-digit inflation. So the first time that UK inflation, the consumer price index, has got above 10% since the early 1980s. So that combination of a recession, stagnant growth essentially next year, plus double-digit inflation, well, that is a toxic cocktail for the UK economy. And on top of that, the bank is judging that the only way they can try to pull down inflation, which is, that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to keep it as close as possible to 2%, the rate at which prices are going up. The only way they can do that is to carry on raising interest rates. So households are facing, at the same time, rising energy costs. You've got the rising impact of tax costs going up as well. And then on top of that, you have interest rates from the Bank of England going up, which pushes up your cost of borrowing. Put it all together, and you're talking about one of the gloomiest forecasts I can remember coming out of the bank. Normally, for the financial crisis, for COVID, they're forecasting a recession that we're already in. This time, they're talking about a recession that's coming towards the end of this year. In other words, pain that is coming. We're all feeling pain at the moment as a result of higher energy bills, but they're talking about an extra pain that's coming up later on this year when that starts to feed into our energy bills, thanks to the off-gen price cap and so on. So it really is quite a striking forecast. I can't quite remember another forecast like it, which has been quite so gloomy, looking off towards the end of next year, towards the end of this year and into next year, a recession warning for the Bank of England.
And Ed, I mean, clearly there's that gloominess that you mentioned. The only less negative thing I can try and bring up here is whether or not interest rates are already at the point that will be adding to the prospects of a recession versus just not giving as much easing as we might otherwise like to see if inflation wasn't looming so loud. And by that, of course, I'm pointing to where interest rates are at. 0.75 hiked by 0.25% to put us at 1% today. Is that incredibly high in historical terms? And will that hit people immediately and add to the threats of recession? Or is it better to try and control that almost double-digit inflation, which itself can lead to a recession?
Well, in historical terms, 1% interest rate it's piddling. It's nothing compared to where interest rates were for most of history since this institution was created in 1694. Back before the financial crisis, so before 2008, the lowest that they had gone was 2%. So we are still in that very low territory. But a few things are different this time around. The amount of debt that we have across the economy, both businesses and households, is much higher. So for every increase you have in interest rates, you're going to see more of an impact, just because everyone is more heavily geared. They've got more debt, so that even if the rate is lower, they're still paying a lot in terms of their monthly payments. The other thing to note is that at the moment, that recession forecast is predicated on the idea that interest rates are going to go up quite a lot more. So 1% just now, as of today's decision. The market is expecting them to get up towards kind of 2.5%. Now, I don't know of many economists who think it's likely to get that high. So it might well be that interest rates don't go quite as high as that. But the main point here is kind of when you step back, what is the big thing that is feeding into making it very difficult for all of us to go out and spend as much as we would normally do around now? It is energy bills. And it's those energy bills and the fact that they squeeze on our disposable income that is the big factor, far more than interest rates, frankly, and far more than the increase in taxes that we're seeing over the course of this year and next year. Those higher energy bills are causing the biggest squeeze on our real household disposable income, kind of the money that we have to spend. And that, as a result, is the main thing that's causing this recession warning. And I should say, as well as the recession warning, it is rare to have quite such a gloomy forecast from the bank. I'm sure that things in due course will improve. But for the time being, you look at the numbers, you look at growth next year, basically weak, pretty much flatlining, and actually a little bit negative. You look at unemployment. Unemployment, according to the bank, is due to increase gradually and then faster, getting towards 5.5% by the end of the forecast horizon. That's kind of 2025. That would be the highest level it's been for a decade. So higher unemployment at the same time. It is hard to find much good news within this forecast, just underlining that the economic story, tough as it is right now, might well get tougher in the next few months. That's what they're forecasting. We'll talk to the Bank of England governor a little bit later on and find out, about that balance, about how the economy is doing, but just why the Bank of England is adding to people's costs, and about just the state of the economy and what can be done. But it's very difficult to see all that much positivity right now, unfortunately.